Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I am one of your co hosts. I'm Dr. Joe Hamlett. And as always, alongside me on this journey is Dr. Dave Peltz. How are you doing, sir?
Happy to be on this journey with you, Dr. Joe. Happy to be with you.
Absolutely. Well, sounds good. So we will go ahead and get started today. And so, for those of you who are coming back, thanks for the support and thanks for tuning in again to another episode. As you all know, this is the personal, professional, and career development journey podcast. I'm sorry, but the reason we're here is to assist you with your journey. As I just, me and Dave both just said, we're on this journey together. We're still on our own separate journeys, and like you, so out there, that's what we want to help you with your journey. And so, if you're brand new, again, hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what we're going to be doing. So, with that, as you all know, our normal format is one of us will introduce and the other will take us off down this path. All right. So, for today's topic, it's going to be kind of a fun one, but with intention. You'll see what we're talking about. So, today's topic is plotting and scheming for success. Right. So
Plotting and
hopefully
scheming.
that sparks your interest. And so with that, Dave is gonna jump right into plotting and scheming for success. What does that mean, Dr. Dave?
Well, let's put a little clarification around it for for context. Yes, we are going to have fun with it, but really, what we're talking about is strategic planning for success. So that's kind of the context. We're trying to come up with a fun name
Yeah.
title. Hopefully, we did that. If not, well, I guess we just keep trying, right? So, plotting and scheming for success is about strategic planning for success, and we've kind of touched on this subject before, and we have, and we're again taking it from a different perspective. So, for me, plotting and scheming for success, I guess, started when I was in the military, right out of high school. I was young. I didn't understand what I was really doing. I saw it as a job, but well, at that time was a nice paycheck, and I was like, well, this is cool. And early in my career, I didn't really think about a whole lot. You make rank, you have to do some certain things, you plot and scheme on how you're going to get those things done, and schedule these extracurricular things that you need to do to make rank and get promoted, and that's it. And it wasn't until like the second half of when I first went in the military that I was more deliberate about that plotting and scheming. I was really assertive, very assertive towards being successful, helping others, getting the most out of my career in the military, and just again being very deliberate about it. And
Right.
then when I got out of the military, the plotting and scheming took a different twist. Now it was for survival because when you're in the military, you're on a contract. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to go to another job." You have to fulfill your contract and your obligation. So then it became different because now I had to find a civilian job, a normal job in the civilian side of things. I mean, that's how I refer to a civilian, corporate side of things. So I struggled for a while. I didn't have that mentorship. I didn't have that guidance. It was more, hey, here's how you write a resume. You're going to do great, cheerleading sort of thing. So I went to a different city and I interviewed and submitted resumes and was trying, and it didn't work out. So I had to come back to another city, and then I thought I had a job lined up. It fell through, and I had to find another job. And so it's that deliberateness and not giving up about what you want and where you want to go. And I've been accused of plotting and scheming against other employees because I'm doing too much or not doing, I'm whatever. So we're going to have fun with this one. So I'm going to pause there, Joe, and let you jump in. Not let you jump in. Please jump in.
Well, Dave, you know what? It's very similar to the way I viewed plotting and scheming. From the beginning, and like you said, join the military. There are some things you have to do. So yeah, you're right. You do that plotting and screen and scheming to get to that next level. But like you, I just kind of floated through that. I knew the expectations, and so it wasn't that much of a challenge. And like you, I just kind of coasted through that. But it wasn't until later in life. that I realized, okay, if I want to move here, if I want to do this, then I've got to be more intentional about my plotting and scheming. And that's exactly what happened. It turned into now I got more strategic with my planning, more, you know, putting goals in place to get to those levels. But like you, sometimes you're accused of, undermining other people or doing all these other things. And that wasn't the case. From their perspective, it may have seemed that way, but that's what it was. I just got more intentional about what I wanted to do. And in a lot of cases, it ruffled people's feathers. It
Yeah.
made them feel like you were, going behind their back and doing all these things. And that was never my plan. It was all
Hmm.
about me continuing to develop, me continuing to grow. But again, to the other person or someone looking at it from a different perspective, they may perceive it that way, which is unfortunate. And that did for me, being in the military a lot longer in the guard status, I was still on both sides of those fences.
Hmm.
So at the military, you were perceived that way, and then on the outside in the civilian sector, you were seen that way as well. When the reality was, I was just using strategic planning to get me to the next level, to whatever that was, or to open more doors. But like you said, in a lot of cases, it's not viewed as a positive thing.
Yeah, we're going above and beyond for our own careers and our own
Right,
success, trying to make that really good impression to say, hey, we're worth getting promoted or taking to going to the next level versus what what's the other angle? Why are you doing that? Why are
right,
you
yeah,
why are you why are you plotting and scheming against me? And it's like, no, that's
right,
not the angle. It's I'm plotting and scheming for myself because what I was doing before wasn't working. So I have to keep moving
right,
forward and moving up. Otherwise, my paycheck's going to stay the same. Nothing's going to happen. And you know, you, and to some people, that was offensive because they were used to doing the bare minimum or just very little to get by. And then they
right,
see you doing all this extra work. Why are you doing all these extra things, these extra activities, school, and making sure your uniform is just top notch and your or you look professional in your attire and
right,
really going above and beyond and that's not it at all. It was never about them. It was
right,
about
right.
us. It was about me. And that I think is led to a lot of confusion for me because I was like, well, if I'm doing my best and I'm trying to help others do their best and helping trying to be a good mentor, how is that a bad thing? You know?
Well, you know what, Dave, and it just this just hit me, but I know this is the case, and a lot of situations is you're challenging the status quo,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
The way you just shared that with, I'm helping myself, I'm helping others, and sometimes people are not ready for that. Watching people either advance beyond them or what they thought they were going to achieve, and it starts to ruffle feathers. It starts
Mhm,
to throw that insecurity into a lot of people because
mhm,
now they may have been the top person or the person with the most experience, or now they're not because people around them are starting to move upward, and they're not. So I think that's some of the negative connotation that goes along with this, is that
mhm,
you're jeopardizing their position or their, where they've been or where they've come, because you're helping other people. You're challenging that status quo, and I think that's the one of the biggest things that we probably, fuel some of this or that negative thought that you're changing things. And as we know, most people don't like change, especially when it's coming from all angles, not just you anymore. Now
right,
you're
right.
potentially helping other people to challenge that status quo. And if you're a person, like you said, that are comfortable where they are, just going to ride this out, then, it starts to look different,
Mhm,
because now maybe people have goals that didn't before. Now they were,
mhm,
now, they may have that group of people that they hung out with, oh, we're going to be just the same. All of a sudden, that person or two people start to change. And now they're starting to lose their identity. So I think that's part of the reason why it's given that negative, you know, process or negative thought toward us because, again, we're not trying to hurt anybody or trying to do anything against anybody else. It's the fact that we're moving forward and they're potentially not.
Yeah, and you made me think of some of a concept, with status quo. A lot of status quo is has the mindset of putting out fires and then relaxing and then putting out a fire and then just
Right.
chilling out or whatever and just coasting. We're trying to prevent those fires, and
Right.
that's the
Right.
difference. We're trying to find a solution so those fires don't happen or that type of fire doesn't happen, which means going beyond just putting out a fire, and then resting. We're always looking for ways to prevent bad things from happening and to make things better for ourselves and everyone else. And to a lot of people, that's not comfortable for them. That's not the way they were brought up. That's not the way they were mentored or coached or not mentored and not coached.
Right. Well, I think back to several situations where, we go into that mindset. Like, for instance, here's an example. So I was not selected for a position one time in the military, and I went to my chief and I said, "Hey, chief, I really want to understand how I can get better, how I can, be in a better position next time." And he's like, "Yeah, I think you're doing a great job." And I said, "Well, one day I want to be in your position." And this chief literally started pushing back away from the desk, like,
Wow.
"You're coming after me." And I had to, reassure him, "No, that, chief, I'm not talking about your job. Literally, I'm not trying to come get. I want to be in a position like you are."
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of creeped back toward the front of the desk. But again, just that initial think that I'm plotting and scheming to take him
Mm-hmm.
down or to take his job. But and it was just so funny to see that or witness that when again I'm not trying to take anything from you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get assistance on how I can
Yeah.
be like you or in a position like yours, and that will sit with me for a long time just because I think that's the first impression a lot of people have, that you're gunning for them, you're plotting and scheming against them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the case. I'm trying to get to a place similar, and so I'm just looking for assistance on how to get there.
It's funny that you say that, Joe, because I had a very similar experience. My first job in corporate America, which was not a big role, as an assistant store manager for a retail chain.
Right.
And I was asked, "What is your goals for the next 12 months?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a store manager." And that person said, "That's not going to happen." And I'm like, "What?" And then I moved on to another corporate job with a big company. And I
Mhm.
told my manager, they asked me, "What do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years?" I said, "In the next 3 to 5 years, I want your job." And it got the same reaction. It's like, not your job,
Right.
but your position, and not your position, a position like yours.
Right. Right.
It's like I was trying to show them I was being that I'm going to be assertive at what
Right.
I'm want, assertive and deliberate about pursuing my career. That I'm serious about this. I'm not just that person that's going to come in and sit down and do my 8 or 10 hours and then go home. I'm here to do
Right.
more and to contribute and to better myself and better the team and make improvements or try to find improvements that gaps that I can improve upon to you know fix instead of just putting a band-aid on and just keep doing the same old thing.
Well, you know what, Dave? Yeah, and it sounds like that's happened to you a couple of times. But you know what I learned from that situation is, again, I had to kind of put myself in that other person's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and so my approach became much softer, even though I didn't think it was hard
Mm-hmm.
initially when I went in there. But like, and when you just said, "I want your job," that was the first impression I got too, was, "Hey, he's trying to take my job." So that was one of the biggest learnings I had from that whole situation, is when you tell people, where you want to go. I think it helps to be not as direct,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I've had to use, moving forward, so that they would still be willing to help you, because that's what I
And you know
learned
what, Joe?
from that.
That's what I learned from that too. Because
Yep.
after that, I changed and said, "I want to be a manager," or "I want to
Right.
be a
Yep.
this," "I want
Yep.
to be a that." Because that military background, military police background, being very direct.
Right.
Didn't work in the civilian side of things, in the
Yeah.
corporate side of things. They're looking at me like, just like you said, like, for you to be in here in 3 to 5 years, you're going to have my job. And I've been doing this
Right.
for 15, 20
Yep.
years. So, it is, you have to take a different approach, that
Right.
plotting and scheming, you have to understand the language and the environment.
Right.
And granted, now this is like 25 years ago and a lot's changed, but I have been told throughout my career, you need to be a little bit softer, a little bit softer, a little bit softer. So I've focused very hard on being soft, almost to the point of becoming a doughboy, But no, I'm not that soft. I'm not soft like that. But it's, just being more aware of
I,
people's
I, and
expectations.
and I that's where I was going to go with this, the whole awareness piece about how people view you or see
Hmm.
you. I think that's most important. I mean, that's as a leader, that's what you want anyway, is again to be perceived um the same across the board, whether
Hmm.
you're talking to a bunch of high go-getters, people high potential, or the opposite end of the spectrum with people with low drive. You still have to
Hmm.
be able to appeal to them, and I think that's the biggest thing I've taken from part of my journey. Is just being approachable to perceived the
Hmm.
same by most people. Again,
Yeah.
I know that's a vague, kind of a vague statement or generalized statement. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that, trying to meet them where they are.
Right. Right.
So that again, some people may appreciate that direct, hey, come in and say, hey, I want your job, and they may laugh and say, okay, come get it. I mean, or the other person, like, the reaction I had was they start to push away, like, you're coming after me. So
Hmm.
I think that's a huge part of it, that awareness piece, because
Hmm.
you don't want to come off like you say as just being a sponge or a doughboy. You don't want to just
Hmm.
come off being, oh, okay, so I think it really takes that understanding how people perceive you
Hmm.
as to how you approach that situation.
Yeah. And for me, I thought I was just being authentic. I was being
Right.
straightforward. But to your point, you have to know your audience. We're talking about strategic planning for success. You can't go to a lumber yard in a suit and
Right.
apply
Right.
for a job. Well, you can, and I did. It did
Right.
not work
Right.
out well. I did not get the
Right.
job because I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't strategic about it. I was just doing what I thought was right instead of actually thinking about it and being deliberate and intentional, to your point. So when we start talking about, when we continue to talk about plotting and scheming for success, it really involves a lot of awareness.
Right.
And to your point, you have to be aware. You have to be conscious. It has to be, you can't just be floating by.
Right.
You have to, think about things and put a plan together. And it's got to be individualized.
Right.
A
Right.
suit for one company may not work for a suit for another
Yep.
company. You have to research your companies, you have to research your team, you have to
Yep.
research your peers, your mentors, other departments within the same company to understand how to navigate your career and to be successful.
And that was exactly where I was going to go. I'm glad you kind of touched on that, because that's really what it comes down to. Again, we're talking about strategic planning for success. And what Dave just said or mentioned was, going in, doing the research, finding out if you're going to a new company, what's their culture like, finding out, are they a direct company, like, or like you say, you want to go and sit in a suit every day, then working in construction might not be the job for you. But if you want to sit, and tinker with your computer, then IT might be the job. So just understanding the whole awareness piece, the whole culture piece, the whole understanding what environment you're going into is all about that plotting and scheming, which is again strategic planning. How do you get to that next level? And it's understanding that environment you potentially may go to, or that environment you're currently in that you're trying to advance. And so understanding all those things does take some intentional, insight into what you're trying to do. And that's why we, again, just jokingly, we say plotting and scheming, but it's really about preparing for that next level, that next journey, that next session, that next season. All those things, you have to be informed about where you're trying to go.
Yeah, and and another part of this, as we've talked about before, is understanding the expectations. You
Okay.
know, if that hiring manager, that person that you're going to be working for, is expecting to hire you, and they want you to just learn and be a sponge and just learn the job, not how to better the job, learn the job for the first 12 to 18 months, you have to be good with that if you're a high performer wanting to go above and
Right.
beyond all the time. You have to regulate yourself to say, hey, I need to step back and pump the brakes a little bit and slow my mode to their speed so it doesn't ruffle feathers. On the other side of things, if they're wanting to hire you to be high speed, low drag and want you to be an outstanding performer and an overachiever, and that's not what you want to do, you have to be aware of that too. You have to
Right.
find a good match. So as part of that strategic planning, you have to understand the expectations of that hiring manager, of that team, of that department, of that organization, what they're expecting of you and what you're expecting of them. Because if you're high speed, low drag, and that's not what they're looking for, you may enjoy it for a little bit, but it's probably not going to be a long term good fit, and vice versa.
Right. No, I think you touched on something again. It should be really considered about where you're trying to go, because you may be in a situation like you said that you're a high performer, but the position calls for a low drag. So you have to go into it knowing that that's the expectation, that I'm expected just to do my job. That's what they want from me. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you are, want to continue that high performing, it probably won't be, you probably won't get the maybe the accolades that you're looking for if you
No.
overproduce. So you have to be, aware of that and
Mm-hmm.
understand that that is the environment you're going into. So again, that goes back to that researching the culture,
Mm-hmm.
researching that organization to make sure it's in alignment. And if it's not in alignment, remember, it's still up to you to say yes or no, and understanding if you say yes and it's that opposite environment, that you could be putting yourself, in a detriment situation where you may
Yeah.
not, it may be okay at first, but down the road it could wear on you and you're turn into someone that you don't want to be. So just understanding that, recognizing those things is what again we've always tried to say is it's up to you. And so if you want to go to a place where you just want to just get through, maybe you've got some plans down the road, but for now this is where you want to be, that's okay. That is still your choice, but just go into it with the understanding that 6 months that you can't pipe up and say, well, I didn't know this is going to be like that. We would hate for you to be in a situation where you haven't done the research and then it's all these roses that were presented to you at the beginning, and realize there's a lot of thorns underneath there.
Right.
So
Right.
just being aware is going to get you in a better place if you know those things up front. And of course you're not going to know everything. Just you won't just be able to do a Google search and say, hey, is this company good, or are they going to show me some thorns down the road? You're probably not going to get that, but just that spidey sense you get, that gut feeling about organizations, about the people you talk to. Just those types of things will help you with, again, that strategic planning for success, or that plotting and scheming that you
Yeah.
want to do. So,
Uh, I've been in environments where they've asked, why are you doing so much extra? Why are you doing all
yeah,
this extra stuff? You just need to
right.
wait your turn.
Yep.
Wait your turn.
Yep.
And that's a harsh reality if that's not the way you're designed. You
Right.
know, um, I read an article earlier this week that this one CEO, I don't know the company. I can't remember the company or the name or anything like that. But they said, I don't want your authentic self to show up. I want your professional and respectful self to show up.
Oh,
And
wow.
I thought that
Okay.
was an interesting perspective from a CEO. They said, I don't want you to bring all your personal life drama to the workplace. I want you to be able to check it at the door, be professional, be respectful, and do a really good job. And
Wow. Okay.
just an interesting perspective. You
Right.
know, it's
Right.
it's kind of like the pendulum for that person or that CEO is kind of swinging in a different direction, and it's something to consider. It gets back to understanding your environment, your plotting and scheming, your strategic planning. Have you done your research as to
Right.
what the CEO or the leadership or the management or the supervisors are expecting? Some companies don't want the drama. Some people want a more personalized relationship with their employees. So you have to understand that when you're planning, doing your strategic planning for your own success.
No, that goes, you know, back to what you referenced before about, um, oh, lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness. Um, the expectations. That's what it was. Yeah, knowing the expectations and that CEO like clear expectations
Mm-hmm.
about what they want from employees. So you're right. If you ignore those signs and you're that person that wants to bring their authentic self and all the drama that comes along with it potentially, then you're probably not going to be happy if you make it through the cut, to get hired in that job or that position. You're probably not going to be successful or happy. So I think that's I hear that from reality, and that's what they expect. So I would prefer they came out that way and not try and entice me if I want to come to work as my authentic self and then get there and I can't. So I
Right.
think it's a bold approach, but again, it's truthful. It's what they expect. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really being very specific about the ground
Yep.
rules
Yep.
and what they expect of their employees, and that's fine.
Right.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of the military, the old military. Don't bring your drama to work. Come to work, do your job, and be ready all the time. And
Right.
it's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing, different way to
Right.
look at things.
Again, if you're aware of that going into it, I'd rather be aware of it and
Hmm.
accepting of it than again it hit me like a ton of bricks down the road when I'm bringing my drama to work, and then they
Right,
say
right.
stop that. Then yeah, that would definitely affect me and my
Mhm.
performance. So again, I applaud that CEO for coming out with straight out saying, "Hey, this is what we expect," and so I would prefer that approach than again to make it look like rainbows and unicorns, and then you get there and it's not. It's
Yeah.
so
And that's an important question that should probably be asked. We should have probably
right,
talked about this earlier. We've only got a couple minutes left, but asking that hiring manager, what is the culture like? Asking them about the expectations of performance
right,
and how you bring yourself to work. Who do you want me to bring to work?
right,
Do you want me to bring someone that's fun, the fun side of me, or you want me just to be that rigid person that doesn't crack a smile? What do you expect of your team members? And
right,
that should be an imperative question, especially um, in today's economy.
right. Well, you mentioned that we only had a few minutes or a couple of minutes left on plotting and scheming us that you can share
Yeah,
with our audience.
yeah. Just a couple final words. Be deliberate, be intentional, as Dr. Joe has said, about plotting and scheming for your success. You utilize those strategic planning strategies to help guide you through your career.
Okay, that's pretty well said. Like I said, we want to have a little fun with this topic today with plotting and scheming, but the reality is it's strategic planning for your success. I mean, really being intentional, and like me and Dave both said initially, we weren't intentional about that, so we might have looked like we were going with the flow, not challenging the status quo and things like that. So just remember that uh, if you're plotting and scheming to for your success, then other people may not view it that way. They may view it that you're plotting and scheming against them. So just be aware that not everybody's going to be accepting, but just again, it's your journey, and if you want to get the best out of it, then keep moving forward. So with that, we've enjoyed this podcast, and again, just a fun one to share, really positive information about where you're trying to go, but in a fun way. So hopefully you got that, and we're not plotting. You don't think we're plotting and scheming against you or the audience. So again, thanks for tuning in. But with that, as always, we want you to continue being your not so ordinary you.